So anyway, thank you guys. I'm so excited to be here with you and just really enjoyed your sharing. Everything that you've shared so far has just really touched me and inspired me, because you guys, you are a transformation in action. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, my conversation is you guys are love in action. All this talk about creating value for others and adding value to others and creating possibilities in our lives and just everything that you're doing is phenomenal. And I have to say that I'm super proud of you guys, Jaira especially, but all of you really for coming together every week here on MMG, and not just one day out of the week, but really every day living your lives, being transformation, being creators. And it's really touching. And on behalf of SLS here in the United States and everywhere that we are, right, wherever all our grads are, I just want to acknowledge you and recognize you, because you, from what we've seen, you are transformation in action. And I just really appreciate you and just thank you guys for being here with us, because really what it's saying is that you've taken a stand, you've made a commitment to transforming the world, right? And you guys have declared it, but not only declared it, you're taking action. And you know, we can't do it by ourselves. We can do it together though. We can create transformation together. We can add value to others together. But it starts with you, starts with me. And so just to see what you've been able to accomplish since graduating, or you know, with your businesses, with all the new projects you guys are working on, it's just incredible. I'm just fascinated and really in awe of you guys. So it's a privilege to be here with you today. So what we're going to do today is a little bit different than what we're used to on Mastermind Group, right? We are going to get to the reading eventually, but right now what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at and create a distinction together, okay? Excuse me. We're going to create a distinction. Now, what is a distinction? What's a distinction? Who has an idea or would like to share, like, when you hear distinction, what do you think of? Go ahead and you can unmute yourself.
Uniqueness.
Uniqueness? Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Good way to put it.
How about stand out?
Stand out, something that stands out, right? Okay.
Identity.
Identity, all right, perfect. So you guys have a pretty good handle on what a distinction is. A distinction is a contrast between similar things. What's unique about it? Why does it stand out, right? So why am I bringing this to us? Why are we creating this today? Well, I feel that this distinction, if we can really grasp this distinction that we're going to create here today, and we grasp it in a way that it has us shifting our everyday being, and we commit to others getting it in that way too, that it can be very powerful. Imagine if because we distinguish between something and we created this together, that it shifts the way we see ourselves or the way we see others, and how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. And then we go out and we share that. How powerful could that be in our community, in our businesses, and in the world, right? So let's look at an example of a simple distinction first. One example I thought of was, what happens when you need a new cell phone? You got to decide, right? Do I get an iPhone or do I get an Android? What do? We compare and we contrast, and we look at what are the differences. What does one have that the other doesn't? Maybe it's the camera, maybe it's the storage. We look at the features, right? And how will they serve my purposes best? What do I use my phone for? And really what's going to function for me in my life? And we have a choice between the two. What else do we distinguish? What else do we compare and contrast in our lives? What about a car, right? Like if we go to buy a car, should we get a Honda? Should we get a Toyota? Should we get an SUV? Should we get a sedan? And we look at, well, what's the gas mileage? What are the benefits to this car over that car? What kind of horsepower does it have? Or how many people does it seat, right? Based on what we're looking for, based on what's going to function for us in our lives. And I want us to get this because not one is right or wrong. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just options for us to look at. And so today what we're going to do is create a distinction between two words. But really, we can look at it as two conversations, two contexts out of which to operate our lives from, okay? So the first context that we're going to look at, we call it the given. And you can write that down if you like, given. G-I-V-E-N, given. And in order for us to understand this, I want to kind of take us on a journey to the past. We're going to time travel. We're going to hop in our time traveling machine and we're going to go back thousands of years, okay? Now, for thousands of years, there have been great thinkers. We call them philosophers. Anybody take philosophy in school? Did you ever take a philosophy class?
Yeah,
Did you like it or were you bored?
I liked it.
Yeah? How about
Kind of
you?
bored.
Kind of bored?
I like
Dawson, you're
the
bored?
I like the jokes of my professor.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah, you know what?
philosophical.
I don't think Natalie can get your joke, Gary.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, it's a good thing you had a comedian in your philosophy class because it could be boring, but it could also be very interesting. But I'm not going to give you a whole philosophy class today, okay? Or we'd be here for hours. I'm just going to give you a little bit, a little taste to explain this given context, okay? So for thousands of years, philosophers have been asking questions like, who am I? Who are you? Why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of all this, right? Percent of the time, what do you guys think? Some say yes, some are saying no. Well, I'm gonna go with no because have you ever been driving down the road and it hasn't rained and you're not on a lake, you're driving on the street, but for some reason way up ahead of you, it looks like there's water on the ground? Have you ever seen that? But then you drive up to it and there's actually no water? That's what we call a mirage, right? Our eyes played tricks on us. So Descartes said, yeah, I can't really depend on my senses to be absolute truth. And so he kept thinking and he kept thinking, and there's books he's written about this, and there's a whole process he went through of his radical doubt method. But what he came up with is, you know, if I am being deceived, then there's someone to be deceived. And if I'm asking these questions, there's someone asking the questions, right? And that someone is me. So he concluded that, well, I think, so I must exist. And if you're a philosophy major or not a philosophy major, hundreds and hundreds of years, anybody know what it is? What did Descartes say?
I think, therefore I am.
Yes, I think, therefore I am. What he was saying is, since I'm thinking, I must exist. And that's an absolute fact that I can count on. And so he gave this conversation to the world, and the world adapted this conversation. And ever since then, we've been operating from the conversation, okay? But there's more to his philosophy. So he figured, so if I exist, then the world must exist. So here I am, existing, and the world exists. And if the world exists, then people exist. And if people exist, then God must exist, because surely we have a creator. And if God exists, then the universe exists. So Rene Descartes invented this conversation that we, you, me, humans, are at the center of the universe. Okay? You following me so far? All right. So along with this philosophy came the conversation that you have a self, I have a self, and that there's a self, a true self to be discovered, that I am a certain way and you a certain way, that he, she, and it is a certain way, and that's the truth. So who here has a boss? Anybody, or ever have a boss? You've had a boss before? All right. What are some of the things that you would say to describe your boss? If your boss is on this phone call, I'd recommend being nice. If your boss is on this meeting tonight, you know, be cautious. But let's just throw some things out. Go ahead and unmute yourselves. And let's throw out things, ways that you would describe your boss. Go ahead and unmute yourselves. Or Jaira, unmute them.
She's nice.
She's nice. Okay. What else?
Tough love.
What is it?
Tough love.
Tough.
Love.
Okay. She's tough, or he has tough love. Yeah, I've explained bosses as controlling. I've had a boss that was really controlling. I had a boss that was really impatient. I would say, gosh, he's so impatient, right?
Always right.
Always right. He always wants to be right. All right. What about a significant other? Anybody have a significant other?
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, let's leave the room, guys.
Yeah,
Yara has left the group.
and hey, being real, let's, your boss is on the line. Who said that? Or somebody's boss is on the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
my
we
boss
look
is
at
here.
significant others, you know, on a good day, we're like, oh, he's so loving. Oh, she's so sweet. Oh, they're just so caring. And on a bad day, or after an argument, he's so selfish. She's so rude. He doesn't listen, right? We've all been there. And notice our language, we're describing them as they are this way. He is that way. She is this way, right? And even for ourselves, think about, how would you describe yourself? I used to claim that I was an introvert. Oh, I'm an introvert. I don't go to parties. Oh, I'm an introvert. I don't like people. And then what would my actions be? I wouldn't go to parties. I wouldn't talk to people. I wouldn't share myself, because I declared that this is who I am. No, this is just me, right? Have you ever been there? Claimed that you're just a certain way?
Yeah.
Well, that conversation was handed down to us. We were thrown into that conversation from birth, okay? Consider that. Consider this. Again, we're looking at a distinction, and there's no right or wrong, so we get to consider that maybe that's a conversation that we were born into, all right? So coming from the given, it says that you and I are fixed. There's no changing it. It is the way it is. Now, there's some possibilities coming from that context. There is. But the possibilities within that context are limited. They can be limited. Okay? So What's the other context? Because we're distinguishing between two choices here, right? The other one is the created. So we have given and created. Okay. So fast forward after Descartes, let's fast forward about 400 years. Okay. 400 years later, another philosopher came on the scene, and his name was Martin Heidegger. Heidegger said, wait a minute, all these philosophers have been asking the wrong question. They're looking at the wrong thing, according to Heidegger, okay? Just another conversation. He suggests that the mystery of the human being is not found in the human. It's in the being. He says we should be asking not why do we exist, but what is existence? What is being? And he looked into that and dove into that and came up with and invented a new conversation, a new context. Okay? Heidegger said that human being exists in language. That our reality isn't given to us, it's created. And wow, what a powerful statement, right? If it's not given to us, if I'm not a certain way and you're not a certain way, but we can create our reality, wouldn't that be powerful? And how do we do that? How do we create our reality? Well, according to Heidegger, human beings live in language. So we create with our language. Incredible. Can you see the possibilities that could come from operating out of a created reality instead of a given reality? Again, no right or wrong, there's possibilities in both. And we've operated in both, right? So I want to check in with you, and what are you hearing so far? Go ahead and somebody share with me what you're hearing up till now and what possibilities this opens up for you.
So for me, yeah, I think there's there's a there's a lot of possibilities, but uh, like the possibilities are dependent on your commitment, like and the concept of being one with your word, because you can, like you mentioned a while ago about Heidegger mentioned that human being exists in language. So um, like for example, for me, if I would say, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and if I'm being one with my word, then it's gonna be. I mean, it will happen because I'm gonna make it's me who's gonna make it happen. So yeah, I want to share this. So with the thing that I'm doing right now, so I'm selling mangoes, right? So at first I was like, my thinking is just, okay, I'm gonna do retailing, and then Jury, he's an SLS1 graduate. So he copied what I'm doing. So he also like sell mangoes, but there's a difference. He's selling like big time, and I was like selling like I'm not really like comparing, but I'm just observing because I'm new to this, and I was thinking, oh, how come that guy sold so many so many mangoes, like unlimited. So what he does is he goes directly to the farmers, and so he gets cheaper prices, and then he sells like uh, truckloads of mangoes. And I was like, there's a difference, like his thinking versus my thinking of how to sell mangoes. And I think that's coming from the conversation. His conversation is like, oh, I'm gonna sell truckloads of mangoes. But my conversation is like, I'm just gonna sell 20 kilos of mangoes. So that's what's happening to me, because I'm boxed into that idea, because I'm creating that idea and then I'm making it happen. But here on the other side, Jury is creating an idea same to mine, but it's different. He's coming from maybe unlimited, like kind of mindset. And so I said, wow, this really mind blowing to me. Like I wonder why so many people are still poor because of their limited mindset. So while this is the last one. So while I was driving this morning, I saw a guy. He's big. He's got muscles and everything, but he's like asking money from the cars that are passing by him, and I was saying to myself, if this guy just you know know that he can create a lot of possibilities for himself, he wouldn't ask money from the cars that are passing by him. Yeah. So that's I was. This is actually like it's a confirmation of what I was thinking lately. So thank you, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I hear that you're saying you're looking at maybe your conversation is different from his conversation. And, you said you're not comparing, you're just observing. But even look at your conversation about your conversations, or your conversation about his conversations, right? So yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe his conversation is different than yours. And maybe your conversation, acknowledging that when we declare a commitment, we get to be that commitment. We get to keep that word and take action. Because I hear what you're saying. If we just throw out words and yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll be there. Sure, I'm gonna earn this much money and I'm gonna sell this many, but then we don't do it. We get to look at, were we being our word? Were we being our commitment? And so yeah, take a look at what conversation you've had about selling mangoes, about all the other things that you do, right? Let's look at the conversation you have that in. And if it's empowering you, great. If it's not empowering you, that's okay too. You can accept that. And from there, we can shift and create a new conversation, because human beings exist in language, right? If we're coming from that idea, that philosophy, and we really adapt that into the conversations we choose, the ones we create, then am I stuck with that conversation that's limiting me? Are we stuck with the conversation that we've been given or that we created even yesterday? Or how about the conversation we created this morning? Are we stuck there? No, we can shift it at any moment. We can invent a new conversation. We can invent a new gyra. We can invent a new mango business. We can invent whatever coming from nothing. After all, human beings live in language, and we can create that, right? Or for sharing. Let me share with you a story. Do any of you know who Helen Keller is?
Yes.
Yeah, Helen Keller? All right. So some of you, okay, most of us know who Helen Keller is. Well, Helen Keller, when she was about 18 months old, contracted an illness. And this illness was so bad that it took away her hearing and her sight. She was blind, she was deaf, and because of that, she also could not speak. And her mother, her father, her family, they didn't know what to do with her. What are we going to do? She can't communicate. She just throws tantrums. She doesn't know where she's at, what she's doing, and we don't know how to help her. What do we do? Well, some of the family members told the parents, why don't you just put her in a hospital? Have her set aside in an institution. We can't help her. There's nothing we can do for her. She can never become anything or do anything. So just put her in a hospital and relieve yourself of this burden. And her mother said, no, this is my child. I'm not going to do that. And she took Helen Keller to a doctor and said, can you help my daughter? Is it possible? Can you give her back her sight or her hearing? And the doctor said, no, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. It's impossible. But you know, there is a school that helps people who are deaf and blind. You should go there, check it out, and see what they can do. So she went to the school. The school referred her to a tutor by the name of Anne Sullivan. Anne Sullivan, an extraordinary individual, came into Helen Keller's, and together they were able to give Helen Keller a whole new experience of life. She learned sign language. She eventually learned how to read Braille. And I don't know if you know this, but Helen Keller grew up to be a full functioning adult, one who was a public speaker, one who was a published author, one who created a foundation to help other disabled people. Who would have thought? You know, Helen Keller didn't ask to be blind. She didn't ask to be deaf. She didn't ask for that illness. It was given to her. This was the circumstances she was given. She was born into the family she was born into, in the time period she was born into, with the illness that she contracted she did not ask for. And really, if you think about it, what kind of life could be created from that type of experience? Nobody would ever have expected her to become a public speaker or an author or to run an organization, let alone be an inspiration to millions of people around the globe for years and years and generations to come. It's fascinating, right? And it was the commitment of her family, her parents, the commitment of Anne Sullivan, her teacher, and even her commitment to creating the impossible future, the future that was never going to happen based on the given, right? But they created something incredible, something extraordinary, not just for her and her family, for the blind. They give inspiration and hope. Helen Keller has been known as a hero. Anne Sullivan, a hero. In fact, there's a movie, if you haven't seen it, it's called The Miracle Worker. So write it down, look it up. I think it's in black and white, if I'm not mistaken, because it's a pretty old movie, but it's called The Miracle Worker, and it's about Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller and their relationship and how Helen Keller was able to learn. And so we can look at the circumstances we've been given. We can look at the other things that we've been given. You know, we were thrown into this world, right? We were given life. We were given our parents. We were given our family. But we also exist in language. We have the ability to create our reality through language. And language is so powerful. It can be so powerful. Let me share with you a quote from Helen Keller herself. She said, "Once I knew only darkness and stillness. My life was without past or future. But a little word from the fingers of another fell into my hand that grasped at emptiness, and my heart leaped to the rapture of living. That one word that she learned, that very first word she learned, gave her the hope and the possibility of living. And so I want to ask you, and really ask us, this is an opportunity for all of us to really look at, where in our lives have we been limiting what's possible for us? And where do we find ourselves in the darkness or in the stillness? Maybe not even just us, but others around us. And you guys are all powerful creators. I've seen it. And that's my conversation about you guys. And so we have an opportunity for ourselves, for our families, for our businesses, and for the rest of the world. It's okay. We could stay there. We could stay in stillness. We could, you know, accept everything as given, and it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This isn't about right or wrong, okay? But we also have an opportunity to leap at the rapture of living and share that with the world. So what possibilities are opening up for you right now from this distinction? Go ahead and unmute yourselves. I want to hear from a couple of you before we move on to the next thing. Don't be shy.
Natalie, I would like to I would like to actually share a realization that I've had while you were sharing the story of Helen Keller, that I am actually limiting myself. So if that is my conversation, that I cannot achieve this and that at a certain period of time, then that conversation is created by me. Therefore, I could also destroy that conversation and create another one in order for me to be limitless. So that is very enlightening. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. So where is it that you've been limiting yourself?
In terms of my goal in sales for the month, so I have been thinking that the pandemic it has impacted all of my potential clients and that they cannot afford. But in reality, this is the best time for them to get it, because there is uncertainty ahead, and the only thing that could help them ensure their family's future is to get the products that we actually offer. So that's a realization that I have, and that's the possibility I'm creating now moving forward. I still have today until Saturday to make all of these things happen. So
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing. And just notice too, even I see that you shifted your conversation, right? You created a new conversation. Actually, that's what you're doing. But if we look at even what you said initially about, you know, they can't afford it, or, you know, and I'm sure all of us can relate to something she's saying, right? We think, oh, they can't afford it right now, or they're not going to buy it. And this has really supported me. This is something I'm learning through the academy and the mastery program and all the trainings that we do, right? This one question that we can ask ourselves with any conversation we're having. It's so powerful. There's two questions actually. The first one is, how do you know this? How do you know they can't afford it? How do you know they won't buy? How do you know this? The second question is, who's saying this? Who says they can't afford it? Who says they won't buy? So who was saying that? Whose conversation was that? Ria, it was yours. So we can look at how we are inventing, we are creating that reality. True or not true? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But as humans, we're constantly creating and inventing a reality, whether limiting or limitless. So what is your sales commitment, Ria? You said you have till, what did you say, Saturday or Sunday?
My commitment is 4 before the end of the month.
All right, 4 for the end of the month. Okay. And who do you get to be to make that happen?
I'm going to be limitless. So I will not stop myself from creating possibilities for others.
All right. And when do you get to be limitless?
Now.
Now. Yes. All right, awesome. So I can check in with you next week and see and hear about your awesome results.
Looking forward to share with you the results.
Yes, awesome. Well, you got this. All right, thank you, Ria, for sharing. Who else? One more. Let's take one more. What's coming up for you, or what possibilities have opened up for you that will have you taking action in new ways? Like Ria here just reinvented her conversation.
Natalie?
Yes, Ebro.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry about my everything, but yeah, I just realized today that I should not be afraid of what people think on the actions I do based on my intent. There's really I'm always thinking there's always a thin line that when you're trying to create an impact, that it will be judged. You know, because you're sometimes out of the box. You don't have, there are a lot of things that you need to improve from how you manage creating an impact. And there are times that you like, you want to doubt the thing that you're starting because it's just all over the place. But just today, because of what you said, I should, reverse that thinking that I should not be thinking that way. How do I put it? Because I'm thinking, because I'm so like I'm a person that's so resourceful, or I could talk to people, to everything that I do. And to some point, I'm thinking, am I going, over what the help that they are extending? And when things fail, I tend to judge myself. So instead of thinking it that way, I just need to push forward because I know my intent and then I'm aware where I need to improve on.
Okay. Who's saying all of that?
Me. So it was just a reminder. Everything that you said was just a breath of fresh air. Like, bro, people don't, I mean, you might be thinking that people are thinking that they've become a victim of what you're trying to start. But no, it's just you thinking that they're aware that I need to improve in that area. So it's like an advantage, to be really sensitive as well. So use my being sensitive not to pull me down, but use it to to be a support to myself. Learn that. I'm really thankful for what Jai. I don't know if I forgot what session it was, but it's supporting your mind or how you support yourself. It's like you have another being that's supporting what you're thinking instead of pulling down what your inner self pulling you down.
what I'm up to creating. And in this case, what I'm hearing is, no, you felt like it's been limiting you, right? Those conversations. So once we accept these are the, but anybody else want to share anything before we go ahead and close? Well, I got a lot of value from this, so I appreciate. Yes, someone want to share, Jairo?
Yeah, I just want to share some few realizations. So I realized that what we allow uh, um, yeah, what we allow in our lives, it's actually being created. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of you guys froze.
Oh.
Anyway, I think my internet is slowing down. So anyway, so yeah, like we allow the comments of other people to, to stop us from doing what we want. And in return, like that itself is a conversation right there. And I realize how it's like most of the time we blame people, but it's actually us who stopped ourselves from going to the other side, where I mean the place where we want to be, because we allow the conversations of other people. It's like we listen to their conversation and we said, okay, that's fair enough, and so we take it as our conversation. And then it's like, okay, now we're stuck. And then we were wondering, why am I stuck? And it's actually, yeah, that's I realized that a lot of times I allow conversations of others to be my conversation. And and I realize how powerful our conversations were, because they're affecting people. Like these people doesn't know that I'm being affected of their conversation. And yeah, so I just want to share that.
Yeah, so what do you think who do we get to be so that we're not allowing conversations to use us or have us or limit us? Who do we get to be so that doesn't happen?
Go ahead, Ito.
Yeah, be our contract.
Yeah, okay. And what does that look like? What is your contract, Ibro?
I'm Ibro. I'm prudent, resilient I'm a prudent, resilient life giver.
Prudent, resilient life giver. Yes. And that is a powerful conversation. And could you be other ways as well? Could you access other ways of being aside from those three?
I've tried, but I can't. I mean, it's a reverse. I want to be someone who I'm not, but I can't stop who I am.
Who said who says you're not? And who says you are the way you are?
Me.
So who Who's inventing that?
Me. Yes.
Well, you're creating it by choice. So how is it that you describe yourself? How do you say that you are? You're saying I can't help but be me. Okay, so who's me?
The me contract. I want to be. Sometimes I'm really tempted to be the person I'm not, but
Which is who?
which is a destructive person, which is a liar, which is uh, someone who wants to fail, someone who wants to quit, someone who wants to stop. That's someone I want to be, but because now I know who I am, and it's not just a contract. Just for a proper word to word it, it's a contract. But actually, it's really me. Because in the past, I've looked at how I failed, and I'm thinking that how I failed is me. But I've also looked, because of SLS, I've looked at my past and look at who I really was, how I was creating an impact, how resourceful I was, how a life giver I was, and I didn't have to be anybody else. That was already me. I just had a choice. If I choose the someone that I'm not by being, safe, going destructive and all that, rather than the person that I am that can create an impact.
Okay, I see. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, and just consider a shift in your language, Ebro. It could be empowering, it could support you. But what I'm hearing is that you occurred for yourself a certain way, and now you're occurring for yourself a different way. And so you are the creator of that. You get to declare and choose who you are going to be, who you are today, who you are in this moment. And yeah, I mean, sometimes we all kind of feel like, like maybe I'll just give up. Maybe I'll just stop doing that. I'm tired, or maybe it's the easy way out or whatever. I mean, I'm sure we've all had those moments, but it doesn't have to mean that's who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There are moments that it's a flight or fight moment, and sometimes you could choose flight, but that doesn't mean that you are not your contract anymore. If I'm saying it right.
Yeah, and even, I mean, yeah, it's survival, right? We can all go back into survival context. We all do it. But we have the ability to shift. We have the ability to create a new conversation. And so even your contract, Ebro, yeah, resilient and life-giving, those are some powerful words. And there may be moments that require you to be something else. Maybe there's moments that require us to be compassionate, forgiving. And then there's moments that require powerful and brave. And there's moments that require us to be resilient and patient. And then there's moments that require us to be, straightforward and unreasonable, right? What I'm getting at is we can all access those ways of being at any given time. So Ebro, consider when you're feeling like accessing these maybe unempowering ways of being, that you can declare, you can choose it, and you can create to access empowering ways of being, like the words in your contract, those ways of being, and others. Okay?
Yeah, and to add, Natalie, how I think whenever I don't know if this will help or if this is right, correct me if I'm wrong. However I think when I'm in a situation that I want to give up, my default would be, this is just a stretch. This is just a
Nice.
stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever conversation you need to create to support you in pushing forward. Whatever conversation that you create that empowers you to keep your commitment. Because really it's about our commitment. Jaira brought it up earlier. It's, actually doing what we say we're going to do, right? And Ria, you brought it up as well. You talked about the conversations that were limiting your goals or your commitment. And it comes down to, what are we committed to creating? And who do we get to be to make that happen? And we declare it in our language, and we be it and who we're being. And at any moment, you can reinvent. Any moment, recreate. Any moment, create a new conversation. All right. Well, thank you, Ebro, for sharing. Thank you guys for sharing, all of you. And I'm just, again, privileged to be here with you and excited. I can't wait to meet some of you guys in person. And I'm praying for all of you. And just on behalf of our MMG network and SLS network, we're all keeping you in our prayers and just really blessed by what you're doing out there. So keep adding value, keep creating, keep, you know, reinventing, and you guys are amazing. And thank you for the stand that you are in the world for transformation. And thank you, Jaira.